السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Inshallah, we'll get started in just a moment. وعليكم السلام أنتي فرح. Alright, things look good. Okay, Bismillah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Salatu wassalam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. Inshallah, you all are well and enjoying the nice weather, inshallah. And your kids aren't bothering you too much. And if you are a youth, inshallah, you're not bothering your parents that much. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us get through these times and allow us to go back and in this world and enjoy ourselves. Okay, so yesterday we began a series of parables about sadaqah, charity. And towards the end of Surah Al-Baqarah, there are 4 parables that come after each other. And each one kind of pinpoints a part of the sadaqah process, the charity process, and really focusing inwards as how sadaqah can affect us from the inside, the state of the heart when we give sadaqah, or just the manifestation of sadaqah, how it's beneficial and where it takes us. So today is the second parable, and in it Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تبطلوا صدقاتكم بالمن والأذى كالذي ينفق ماله رئاء الناس ولا يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فمثله كمثل صفوان عليه تراب فأصابه وابل فتركه صلدا لا يقدرون على شيء مما كسبوا والله لا يهدي القوم الكافرين. In this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pointing to one of the factors or one of the situations in which a person's charity, the reward of that charity, can be nullified. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us the reason why and follows it with a parable explaining and elaborating, illustrating to us the state of the heart of such a person. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins by saying, O you who believe, do not nullify the reward of your sadaqah with what's called man and adha. Man is when you continuously remind the person you helped out with your favor upon them. Like going to so-and-so, Tariq gives Ahmed $100 as a loan to help him out, and then every now and then I'm going to Ahmed, I'm saying, Ahmed, you remember the time when I helped you out then? Be thankful, be thankful. Just remember the favor later on. Help me out later on. And they keep doing that in a way that's annoying the individual. That leads to the nullification of the sadaqah. Why? Because now it's clear that the person is trying to utilize their religious act, their spiritual act, for a personal worldly gain. So that leads to the nullification of the sadaqah. The other one is adha. Is by harming them with your words or your gestures. Like Ahmed comes to me and Ahmed says, hey, I'm really in a tight situation now, can you help me with $100? And I say, oh, Ahmed, you keep doing this, why don't you go get a job, go get a better job, you're such a hassle on me, and here's $100 and for the sake of Allah. No, that's not the way it works. You have harmed that individual, and that harm nullifies and negates the good that you are doing, and therefore it leads to gaining nothing out of it. So those are man and adha. And these are 2 forms of insincerity. Really, when someone does it, there's an insincerity behind it. If the person is hopeful for what's with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if they view the wealth that they have as a privilege from Allah, something that Allah has blessed being with, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, out of His wisdom did not offer this other individual, Ahmed, with the same amount of financial stability. They view it as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, based on His mercy and His wisdom, distributed wealth to where I have something to sustain me and a little extra, and Ahmed does not. If that's the lens I'm viewing it from, I'm not going to see me giving $100 to Ahmed as something virtuous within myself. But rather, this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala giving me an opportunity to do something that pleases Him. So when someone acts with men or other, acts and harms the other person, hurts their feelings because of that charity or their need, then such a person, their heart has some problems in it, which the rest of the verse elaborates and illustrates. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then says, كَالَّذِي يُنْفِقُ مَالَهُ رِئَاءَ النَّاسِ وَلَا يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. Like the one who harms and hurts the feeling of the one asking or the one they gave, is like the one who spends their wealth seeking the praise of other people. So like riya, like ostentation, nullifies good deeds, man and adha, hurting a person's feeling because of that, also nullifies the deed. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says something interesting. وَلَا يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. They give their wealth ostentatiously, or their wealth is given with that hurt, or the hurting the other person's feeling, and the state is that they don't believe in Allah and the next life. Now, someone who is guilty of man and adha or ostentation is not excommunicated from the faith. They're not doing something blasphemous. Yes, it nullifies the deeds, but it doesn't take the person outside the fold of Islam. So why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, wording the verse like this? It's as if He's saying that someone who does this is someone who doesn't believe in Allah and His messenger, right? This isn't meant to bring about a fiqhi ruling. This isn't a fiqh ruling where the person's excommunicated. Rather, it's saying the one who does this, right? The one who spends their wealth ostentatiously, right? Seeking the praise and the favors of other people and the pleasure of other people, or when they give, they hurt the other person's feeling. It's as if Iman hasn't really pierced their heart. What's motivating them to do what they do in the charity is not coming from a belief in Allah and the next life. And it's as if at that moment they excluded Allah and the next life from their emotions, from their mental process that led them to giving the charity in the first place. So by saying وَلَا يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ, it's not a literal thing where they're no longer a Muslim, but rather their state in that moment, it's as if Allah and the next life have no influence on their action. Now, for us Muslims, this is very problematic. In fact, this is very concerning. Is there really a moment where I exclude Allah and paradise from what I do? And the answer is a clear yes. In fact, there are many things that we do, we exclude Allah and our pursuit of the next life from it. And that is a sign of deficient Iman. Now, this is a lifelong struggle as we build this, the constant awareness of Allah, the constant pursuit of the next life, to where we transform all of our routine lives, whether it's going to work, commuting, cooking food for the family, cleaning the home, playing with your children, listening to your children, whatever it is, these routine matters of life. It is a lifelong pursuit. It takes a lifetime to transform these routines into spiritual experiences that bring us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it's important to understand why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pairing this phrase that they don't believe in Allah and the next life with the concept of ostentation and hurting another person's feeling. It's because it's absent during that time. Furthermore, and this is something that I see consistently in the Quran, when the Quran points to or when the Quran criticizes an action or a concept, whatever it may be, when the Quran criticizes something, it simultaneously points and alludes to the root of the problem. And subhanAllah, the eloquency of the Quran, I mean, just its depth and its power is so much so that the problem itself when Allah alludes to the root of the problem, He also alludes to the solution to the problem. So in this example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that when someone gives their charity in a inappropriate manner, spiritually speaking, or even socially speaking, that is rooted, that is coming from a deficiency in their belief and attachment to Allah and the next life. The solution to that is strengthening our attachment to Allah and the next life. I mean, that is the solution, and we spoke about this yesterday. And just to refresh, and if someone wasn't with us yesterday, the idea is the following. The more our hearts are attached to Allah, the more we love Allah. And the more we love Allah, the more we want to be close to Allah, and thus we start sacrificing and doing on His behalf. The more our hearts are centered, or our lives are centered around the next life, the more our hearts are attached to paradise and being in paradise and the pleasures of paradise, the more we are going to dedicate and allocate our resources to seeking the next life, to obtaining and achieving paradise. So we as Muslims, I mean, this is a sum of the religion. It really is. Belief in Allah and the next life. The more we are able to believe in these two elements, meaning the more they influence our decisions and our behaviors, the more iman we develop. And the easier it becomes to push back these factors or these behaviors that nullify our good deeds. Now, okay, so, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues by giving the parable. So the first half of the verse is kind of a prelude to the parable itself. They don't believe in Allah and the day of judgment, the next life. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this parable says, their example is like the example of a safwan. A safwan is a type of rock. So rocks, like in the English language, there are different categories of rocks and different types of rocks and different elemental compounds that form rocks, etc. Same thing in the Arabic language. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the word safwan. Safwan is a type of rock. And this rock is a rock that's very, very hard, and it's very smooth. And what this means is that this isn't a rock in which dirt or foreign objects can enter it. What you find sometimes is, for example, mountains that are more rock structured instead of dirt. You find that despite that, you'll find agriculture, plants, trees growing on it. Okay? Why? Because the rock is not solid enough to where it prevents dirt from entering or water from entering. So when dirt and water mixes, you have plants that grow off of it. And subhanAllah, one time I was in Jordan it's called Wadi Bani Hamad in the southern province of Karak. It was absolutely phenomenal. And something I noticed there was that on the sides of the cliffs that form the valley, you had palm trees growing off of them. I said, subhanAllah, it looks like rock, but you have palm trees growing off of those rocks. Why? Because the rock formation isn't tight or strong enough to where it prevents foreign objects from entering. A safwan, on the other hand, is something that nothing grows on. It is rock solid, literally, no pun intended. It's rock solid to where no foreign objects can even enter it. And therefore, it's lifeless. It's always lifeless. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that their example, the example of someone who does this in their sadaqah, in their charity, is like the example of this type of rock that has dirt around it, right? Dirt is on it, not in it, it's on it. And then rain comes, فَأَصَابَهُ وَابِلٌ فَتَرَكَهُ صَلْدًا. Heavy rain comes and washes away all of the dirt to where it remains a smooth and lifeless rock. لا يقدرون على شيء مما كسبوا. Right? Once that dirt is washed away, no one can really bring it back. It's washed away, becomes dirt. The rock is no longer viable for that dirt. والله لا يهدي القوم الكافرين. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not guide the the kafirin. I'll get to that in a moment. What is the analogy here? The Safwan is analogous to the heart. Here, the Safwan is representing the heart. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does this a few times in the Quran, and we'll get to other parables as well. When the heart is represented with a rock, it's a type of heart that is hard. Like a rock is hard, the heart is hard, right? And the fact, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does this and says this in a previous verse in Surah Al-Baqarah, in which He says, ثُمَّ قَسَتْ قُلُوبُكُم مِّن بَعْدِ ذَلِكَ فَهِيَ كَالْحِجَارَةِ أَوْ أَشَدُّ قَسْوَةً. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, criticizing the children of Israel, says that after this saga that you just went through, that should melt the heart and reestablish and reaffirm your belief in the next life and in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, along with your dedication to them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that after that your hearts hardened to where it became like a rock or even harder, right? So this is, the Safwan is representing a rock. Now, as I mentioned just now, rocks, there are different types of rocks. And some rocks can hold life, or life can come out of it, right? There are some rocks where it's weak to where water can eventually make its way through it and water can come out of it. Or plant life, as I mentioned in the example of the valley that I was in, plants can grow on it. There are other rocks where it's lifeless, it's dead. Okay? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is saying the one who spends this way, it's as if their hearts are so hard that it's lifeless. And the outwardly action of them giving charity, outwardly it seems something that is positive. Now, yesterday we mentioned that how charity really revives the economy. It keeps the economy flowing and stable by redistributing wealth. Also, there are many other benefits to that, such as the social benefits of spreading kindness and optimism to society, where people don't feel like they have been excluded from society or they are neglected, and thus they develop this very hateful perception of the world and people. That's very problematic. So outwardly, charity has this benefit, and charity creates growth, right? As we mentioned yesterday. So likewise, the dirt here, the dirt is analogous to the charity itself. Why? Because from dirt comes life. We as human beings were created from dirt. Plants and vegetables and fruits come out of dirt. And we use dirt as a type of purification, right? And there are so much elements, and where you plant certain plants, it will differ based on the dirt type and the elements within the dirt itself. So dirt here is analogous to life. So like charity brings life to society, brings life to the economy, right? You would think that when a person gives charity, there is life within, that something is going to grow off of it. So when we as individuals, as Muslims, we hear the call of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we want to answer His call and seek His bounties and His mercies, we give charity. And yesterday's parable spoke about how when we give charity, it multiplies. It comes out of the dirt, right? There's fruit, there's you reap what you sow. But here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that dirt is just on the outside. What's inside is something different, right? So when we as Muslims, when we give for the sake of Allah, it gives us life. And as this will be further elaborated in tomorrow's parable. But this person, subhanAllah, look how beautiful this illustration is. On the outside, you see the dirt. You expect life to come out of their action. But what happens? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends down rain. And rain, like a storm, a very heavy rain, comes and washes away the dirt to reveal the true nature of that person's heart. And that is, it's a rock. A lifeless rock. Why a lifeless rock? Why is it here? They're not disbelievers. They still have life of Iman here. But why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describing this type of action to be coming from a heart that is lifeless because of the following. Allah Ta'ala alam. And I'd love to hear your own opinions. The whole concept of charity, giving to someone else, right? There has to be a precondition. There has to be something going on in the mind or the heart that motivates the individual to give without expecting return. When you think of charity from a purely economic or budget perspective, charity harms your wealth. It takes away without bringing anything. So from purely a budget perspective, put Iman and the next life on the side. If you ask someone to budget your finances, right, and they see that in your statement there is charity and you're giving $100, $200 a month, they're going to say the first thing, to improve your budget, stop giving charity. That makes sense from that perspective. Yet we do it. Now the question is why? Why do we sacrifice the most precious resource to us? Right? That's the question here. Why do we give charity? Well, the question then we need to ask is, who do we give charity to? We give charity to the poor people. We give charity to the orphans. We give charity to someone who is having financial problems. We give charity to people whose situations bring tears to our eyes. When you look at and you study the strategies of fundraising, right? And you've noticed this in fundraiser events that you've gone to. They'll play a video, right? And the video starts off very grim, very dark. You see the children. They always bring children. And the children are dirty. I lost my father. I lost my mother. A widow lost her husband because of this. Someone who's been wounded because of war and oppression. And you see the tears coming down. And your tears start coming down, right? And then they slowly shift to something more optimistic and positive. The music starts changing. I mean, we've all seen this. And to something where there's hope. Look at how we as an organization, because of your generosity, your donations, we are able to bring smiles to the faces of these people who are in distress. So charity, the whole concept, is recognizing that there are people out there who need your help. To realize there are people out there who are hurting. There are people out there who are hungry. There are people out there who are in a situation of extreme vulnerability. They're extremely vulnerable. They're extremely desperate. And when we see these images, we start crying. Or we feel like we're going to cry, but we hold ourselves back. Or we feel inspired, motivated. Man, if I had money, I wish I can give. Why? Because we feel for the other people. That is the life, the humane, the human life within us. The emotions, the feelings of life. That's what it is. We feel for those people because we experience life. But someone who utilizes charity for their own self-interest, or they utilize charity, or they hurt the other person's feelings, it's as if that type of life has been taken out of their heart, or it's not present in their heart. Their hearts are so hard that they cannot feel for the other person who's asking them. Maybe all of us have had a situation where we've had to ask someone for help. It's not pleasurable to us. It doesn't bring good feelings. It's not comforting. In fact, we feel like we humiliated ourselves by going to someone, even if they're a best friend, sometimes even a parent, going to a father or sibling, right? It's very difficult because no one likes to feel that they can't stand on their own 2 feet. No one likes to feel that they need the help of someone else. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is comparing the heart of someone who does this with their charity, or after giving charity, with a lifeless rock, because they didn't feel for that other person. Also, it can be looked at, and there's no contradiction between these two, it could be looked at in the sense that Iman, their belief, didn't give their heart's life. Iman, as we mentioned in the very first parable of this series, rain is the source of life. And rain in the Quran is often analogous to a revelation, because revelation gives life to our heart, like rain gives life to the earth, right? And it's the source of life, biological life. So it's as if this person who is doing these inappropriate behaviors, revelation that they believe in has not given life to their heart. So it's as if their heart is a lifeless rock. Subhanallah. So their belief in Allah, their love for Allah, their pursuit of the next life, none of these elements, none of these variables have affected their heart in their positive way. So this is quite scary, by the way. This is quite concerning, and this is a good test of our own iman. How willing are we to give someone? How willing are we to sacrifice our own commodities and resources to improve the situation of someone else? How willing are we to answer the call of Allah? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Man dhal ladhi yuqridu Allah qardan hasanan." Now, who is the one who is going to loan Allah with a good loan? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala words it this way because He's talking to us in a manner that resonates with us. Business. We love business. The only thing Muslims talk about more than business is politics, right? But business is a human language because we love profit, we love to gain, we love to build and establish ourselves. So if these things aren't affecting our hearts, and the result of our iman or our observation of the need of someone else is that we give charity, seeking the reward and praise of people, or we follow up our charity with harming the other person and speaking to them condescendingly or hurting their feelings, there's a big problem in the heart. So test your iman with your willingness to give. This doesn't mean we act crazily and irresponsibly, right? It's not about giving all your wealth and sacrificing everything. In fact, that's quite that's rejected in terms of the Sharia, or not rejected entirely in terms of it's haram. It's not encouraged at all. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do not give your wealth, do not spend so much to where you end up with nothing, you leave yourself with nothing, and thus you regret what you did. Part of preserving the reward of our charity is that we don't regret it afterwards. And part of that is managing our finances intelligently and wisely. Right? And charity makes more room in your heart for the love of Allah, of course. I mean, it goes back to the whole idea of charity. You're sacrificing. Oh Allah, I'm doing this for you. I am sacrificing something dear and near to me, something that I worked hard for. I sweat for. I woke up and sacrificed my sleep for this. So many years behind me in seeking an education and building myself in order to earn this money. And now I'm giving it freely without expecting anything from someone else, without expecting any profit for you. And when we really think about this and contemplate it and internalize it, it builds that love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, how many people here are willing to just go and give a random person a few bucks or some money, right? Sure, if they ask and we feel like they're in need, but there's something about charity that's really nourishing to the heart. And inshallah, we will talk more about that in tomorrow's parable. But let's quickly conclude the verse by saying, لا يقدرون على شيء مما كسبوا. They're unable to obtain or attain or regain what they earned. Meaning, when this person gave away their wealth, right? They gave $100 to so-and-so, but they followed that up with something that negates their reward. What happens in the end? Like the water came and washed away the dirt, and we can no longer bring that dirt back and cover the rock. Likewise, when that person gave their money, they lost that money. They not only lost that money, they lost the reward, and thus they're left with nothing. They're not able to regain that, right? So they're left with nothing, and therefore they're left with regret. Subhanallah. When it comes to praises of people, they might praise you for a moment or two. You might say get a reward, but 30 seconds after your speech or after the praise, they no longer praise you. They're not thinking about you anymore. So the person not only lost a part of their wealth, they lost the reward they could have gotten out of that, and thus they're left with regret. Subhanallah. So the person who misbehaves when it comes to charity is left with regret and left with nothing, whereas the one who gives for the sake of Allah, tomorrow's parable will tell us what they earn and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards them with. Wallahu la yahdi al-qawm al-kafirin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not guide the kafirin. Now the word kafirin here is commonly, in the Quran, commonly used to refer to disbelief. And subhanAllah, how twice in this verse, this one verse, in terms of sadaqah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pointing to that which completely negates iman and our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But like the first example in this verse, this one too is not referring to the excommunicating of a person, the rejection of faith, or that this person is no longer a believer. Rather, what it's referring to is the linguistic meaning of the word kafir, right? And that is, kafara means to hide something. So a farmer, farmers are called kuffar, and a village of farm and agricultural land is called kufr. When I was in Jordan, I'd read the signs, kufr thilith, kufr this, kufr that. I'm like, are these people not Muslims? Until I realized that kufr here is referring to farming and farmland. So a farmer, what does he or she do? They plow the land and then they plant the seed and then cover the seed up. So kafara is referring to the process of covering up. So a kafir is as if it's someone who has covered up the truth. They have rejected the truth, thus covering it up. Also, kafir can be used to refer to kufr and ni'mah, covering up a person's blessing, rejecting the blessing. And here it would mean rejecting the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he's saying here, the one who does this abuses their charity by either through insincerity or hurtful comments. It's as if they have or they are rejecting the blessing of Allah. The wealth that you possess is Allah's wealth. He is giving you that means as a resource for your own well-being. In the end, it's for Allah. He gives it to whom He wills, and He takes it away from whom He wills. And also, Allah is the one who gave you the ability to get your profession, to become a professional and make money. That is Allah who gave that to you, and we elaborated on that yesterday. He gave you your faculties. He gave you your mind and your senses, right? It's not you who developed that on your own. No one gave that to you except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And therefore, the means that you use, or the tools that you use in order to make money, are from Allah. So don't reject that blessing by doing these things. When you give for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you feel like if you give so-and-so, it's going to lead to ostentation, or it's going to lead to harming their feelings, then it's better for you to say, oh, so-and-so, please forgive me, I can't do it right now, but I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help you out. That is better than giving and following your charity up with hurting the other person's feeling. Now, just one quick thing before we conclude. If someone did something for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? They gave charity for the sake of Allah. But after the event, people come and say, oh, so-and-so, mashallah, thank you so much, we really praise you. And then you start feeling the ostentation coming in. Oh, mashallah, these people are praising me and they're thanking me, I feel really good, etc. Does that nullify the person's actions? It doesn't if they repent from that. So if someone did something for the sake of Allah, right, and then later that is clouded and shrouded by ostentation, right, they can reclaim the reward by doing tawbah, right, by asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among the generous in His causes, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to provide us with the resources, the monetary resources, as well as the emotional and spiritual resources, to be able to give on His behalf, so that we can reap the rewards of sadaqah, especially in this beautiful month of Ramadan. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve you all and reward you for your time. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. If anyone has any questions, and I'll be more than happy to answer them. وإياكم Sister Fariba. وإياكم خالته وفاء. Thank you, and may Allah accept Auntie Farkhunda. Alright everyone, Assalamu alaikum. I hope you enjoy your iftar this evening and your sweets that follow afterwards. Please don't forget to make dua for all those in need during the last moments of fasting. As we know, dua is accepted during that time. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help all our brothers and sisters and all individuals who are in need, and to allow us to be a source of help for them. So, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.